Welcome everyone to Masculine Geek number 206, and we have special guest Paul from Come On Man podcast. And in fact, we had you on the Christmas Eve show.
That's right.
So this is your second time on Masculine Geek.
Yeah, technically. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I hope for the people that are watching, this is my astronaut back here. Her name is Sadie. She just had some lipomas removed, so she's gonna walk around with the cone of shame.
That's actually pretty cool. Is she doing all right?
She actually is doing pretty good. Yeah. There was a massive lipoma on her hip.
Oh,
Huge. Shit. Yeah. Apparently that came out easy. And then she had like a little cyst going on her front leg. And that was a real pain to get out, apparently. So.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. She's on some good drugs right now.
That always helps. What's everyone drinking tonight?
I've got some Jim Beam Black Label with 7-Up.
Oh, nice. Robert, yourself?
An adult coffee.
An adult coffee. Okay. Mm. This is an Americano. It's French. It's Campari, sweet vermouth, some mineral water, and a splash of maraschino. Mm. This was a tribute to the United States when the United States helped them write their Bill of Rights after the French War. Specifically Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette. So the Americano. Anyway, so welcome, Paul. Welcome to Masculine Geek again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How should we start this? Because
how about with what kind of dog he has?
Well, we could totally go. We could totally do the whole animal geek route first, rather than what the normal. What do you do?
No, Vince, you do.
No, we were just.
It's your show.
No, we were just talking about this beforehand. I'm glad you brought that up because it's like.
Yeah.
So, Paul, what's your origins? I don't. We'll get to that. So, your dog. What kind of dog is it?
She's a lab border collie mix, I think. She's adopted. We don't really know. Don't tell her though. Yeah, I adopted her from a pound in California back in 2012. We had conflicting stories on how old she was. The pound said she was 2, but the vet that took care of having her spayed and stuff said that they thought she was closer to 5. So she's somewhere in there. And so she's a pretty good dog. She's a mutt. Yeah, and I've had her for quite a while now. So I assume she's roughly 15-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, she's getting up there.
She's a middle-aged lady.
She's an old lady.
Yeah. At 15, she's pretty old.
She's got the gray hair and everything.
There you go. Paul's, we're absolutely going to talk about WWE and any other kind of nerd shit. So, let's actually dive into that. Did you grow as far as like nerd type hobbies or things that you wouldn't normally talk about maybe on your own podcast? Did you grow up with Dungeons and Dragons, video games, chess, checkers? Did you paint minis? Did you throw lawn darts? What kind of cool shit? And what era did you grow up in?
So I was born in '79. So I was like a teenager in the '90s.
Okay.
And like the kind of nerd shit. I never got into D&D, but I used to love fantasy novels. Like I read the entire Dragonlance series.
Oh,
like,
okay.
To this day, that like if people ask me what my favorite book series is, it's the Dragonlance. What is it? The Chronicle series. Like the Winter Twilight and
Dragons
Autumn.
of Autumn, Twilight. Yeah.
That's my favorite series of all time. So yeah, I was into that sort of thing. When it came to wrestling, I was into it when I was a kid, like in the 80s, like the Hulk Hogan stuff. And then I sort of grew out of it, became really stupid in the 90s, but I got back into it when I was in the Navy. On the ship, it was like a whole ordeal. Every Monday night, it was like in berthing, and I lived on the ship. Every Monday night in berthing, it was an event. We'd all gather around and watch, Stone Cold and The Rock and stuff. And then, like an idiot, I got married my second year in the Navy, and my now ex-wife like hated wrestling. So when we moved in together, and I was like, "Oh, let's watch Monday Night Raw," she was like, "No," and I was a pussy. So I didn't watch wrestling for like 14 years, the whole time we were married. And when we got divorced, I found myself, alone some nights because I sucked at dating. And then next I turned on a WWE episode, and I was immediately rehooked. And then I went full nerd with it and didn't just do WWE. I realized, there's independent wrestling out here, and there's wrestling in Japan and stuff. And so I really got into more of the indie scene and alternatives to WWE, which is why I don't have any WWE belts specifically. I still like WWE.
Mm-hmm.
What other kind of nerd shit? I did play video games a little bit. We didn't have my parents wouldn't let us have a console system after our Atari. We had an Atari 2600.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was like either get a gaming system, like a Nintendo, or buy a computer. And so we all sort of decided on getting an old Pac Bell computer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then my brother and I started doing old PC games and stuff like that. I think my favorite game when I was a teenager was Redneck Rampage.
Redneck Rampage.
Dude, that's the best game.
Does that feature Bull Rush? Is that
Dude, that game, if you've never played it, it's a first person shooter. And you are this redneck, and you go around. You have these things like you have shotguns, and you have crossbows with like arrows with dynamite attached to them and stuff.
I like it already.
And you're fighting an alien invasion. So there's aliens around, and you got to go around killing aliens. And when you blow stuff up, the guy says stuff like, "Oh, that blew it up real good," and
the southern accent and everything.
Yeah, great.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we had the Atari 2600. My parents had purchased that from a neighbor down the street from us on our block, with maybe 20 games for a couple $100, and we were allowed an hour or two a day, and that was it.
Did you have the original black and brown console one? Because I had like the
fake wood.
Yeah,
yep.
I had the newer model that was all black.
Oh, the re-release, yeah.
Yeah, but it still played the same games. They didn't. It's not like they made it a better system. It was funny.
Yeah, really.
Mictibus wants to know my opinions on WWE getting sold. So I saw some rumors about this today that they have reached an agreement to sell to some Saudi Arabian company.
Mm-hmm.
But then I saw some other conflicting information saying that that's not true. So who knows what's going on. I'm actually like, I don't know, when Vince McMahon stepped down, I was actually excited about it, because the guy's getting old. His creative abilities are still stuck in like the 80s, with cartoon characters. NXT, which is WWE's developmental brand, they were like awesome. It was ran by Triple H. And if you guys aren't into nerd wrestling shit, Triple H is, legendary wrestler, and he man, he made
China's ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's married to Stephanie McMahon right now.
He's Mr. Stephanie McMahon.
Exactly. Well, he and basically the DX guys were running NXT, and NXT was fucking awesome. And so they would make these really awesome, characters, which, wrestlers are characters at the end of the day. And then they would bring them up to the main roster, and then Vince McMahon would be like, "Oh, I don't get it." And then just change it to something completely stupid and just ruin these wrestlers' characters and turn these guys that were like, monster killers to like pussies. And so when he stepped down and then they made Triple H head of creative, I was like, awesome, this is going to be good. And then Triple H undid all the bullshit that Vince did and let the characters come back from their NXT days when they were good. And things were starting to be good again. And then Vince McMahon just came back, and now they're selling the company, and it's all going to shit. So
Fantastic.
Wrestling is not fake, Andrew. How dare you, sir? It's
I know, right?
scripted. It's scripted. It's different.
Probably a huge distinction.
Well, it's like, I mean, you watch, let's say Game of Thrones, right?
Hmm.
You watch a battle scene on Game of Thrones. Nobody sits there and goes, "Ah, that's fake," But those guys aren't really fighting a battle.
They're not dying. Yeah, exactly. They're not dying and getting their hands chopped off and
No, it's like, so I look
getting
at
disemboweled.
pro wrestling like it's a live action stunt show. That's all it is.
All right, fair enough.
Do you think it lost some of its magic when it came out that it was sports entertainment for various reasons with the steroids issues and other controversies as far as being regulated like other sports? When no, we're not a real sport, we're sports entertainment, therefore we don't have to have the same kind of scrutiny or government intervention and stuff like that as professional baseball or professional basketball or football. And in doing that, to try to protect the company in that way, do you think that it overall lost a little bit of its magic by no longer having that plausible deniability as far as, is it real, is it not?
I would say no. I would say for the most part, most people knew it wasn't, it was a work, as they say. In fact, there's a pro wrestler named Al Snow, and he was at WWE and TNA and all that, and he's one of the premier trainers in the sport. And I saw a lecture that he gave saying that my dog is poking me with this with the code here. Anyway, he gave a lecture to some of his wrestling students, and he said that newspapers in the US at least stopped reporting on professional wrestling, like something like back in the 30s, because they knew back then that it was entertainment. So I don't think it was that big of a leap for most people to go from this is a sport to sports entertainment. I think most people secretly knew, and they just didn't care. And a lot of it is just it's just like watching television. You're suspending disbelief and stuff like that. But in Japan, they actually treat professional wrestling like it's a real sport. They actually have. Oh yeah,
it's very different there. There and in Mexico, they're on totally different levels than here.
Yeah,
nationally.
And they actually the news will cover it like it's a real sport. They do
like newscasters and shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and they do sort of like in MMA. They have press conferences like before a fight, stuff like that. They do that in for like New Japan and stuff like that. AEW has been trying to do that lately, but it's just not the same here because people in America they know it's not a real sport. Although ESPN has been covering it a little bit, so which is kind of funny. And TMZ actually covers pro wrestling. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. I had no idea there's this huge interest internationally.
It's actually a really big, widely, a lot of people really do like wrestling. And a lot of people, it's like almost like a guilty pleasure,
Yeah.
But the luchador angle down in Mexico, and then with certain characters in Japan, especially like the original Tiger Mask and Yushin Liger and guys like that, those guys were very much characters on like a superhero sort of level. And of course, Tiger Mask is a very famous anime series that was just revived a few years ago and had a Shin Tiger Mask or New Tiger Mask series, which was actually pretty decent. So yeah, my relationship with pro wrestling goes on a local level as far as guys like Dick the Bruiser and Bruno Sammartino and those kind of guys back in.
They sound like mob boss characters.
Well,
from
these
cartoon,
were
like
rough and
Benny the
tumble guys.
Nose
A
and
lot
No
of them.
Christmas Kurt. And...
Oh yeah, these guys were brutes. I mean, Dick the Bruiser is one of several that were like professional wrestlers who came from professional football, and we're talking guys that were playing football in like the 50s and 60s. So I mean, these guys, you know, full contact, beat the crap out of you every Sunday, and then, you know, after spending all night Saturday in a bar getting drunk and you know, having sex. So I mean, it was a very different era of guys,
As one
and a very
does.
different era of wrestlers. And so those guys I knew. And then obviously when the 80s kind of came around, a lot of my buddies were really into the golden days of Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan
Those
and
names
that
I've heard
kind of
of,
stuff with WWF. And then I remember the stuff with WWF and WCW as far as those things in the 90s, even though I wasn't actually watching it, because I enjoyed the old local professional wrestling insofar as I was very, very young. So watching these brutes slug it out was kind of cool as a kid, especially since they had professional wrestling on like right after Sammy Terry, who was our local horror movie host. So Nightmare Theater, professional wrestling, then the national anthem and the TV signed off. So those are very, very different days. So by the time it became kind of like Hollywood-esque and became, you know, one company to rule them all in the 80s, you know, I really didn't have a lot of interest, and saw these guys as basically being, you know, maybe one step above respectability of a carny.
Yeah.
Which I mean was really true. I mean, they had the same kind of, you know, codes of secret languages and code of silence and stuff like that, because, you know, kayfabe and all that. And so I wasn't as interested in it, but I've been more interested in it lately. Not so much the sport itself, but, you know, the things like the biographies on these older wrestlers. And I'm actually a lot more interested in them as, you know, people and their actual histories than their wrestling career. I mean, I thought guys like Roddy Piper were way more talented and deserved way more credit, both as wrestler and as an actor. I mean, some of the best stuff, you know, that he's done, I thought was outside of the ring. And here was a guy who had a really hard knock life. And so it's like the John Carpenter movie, They Live. He basically scripted that intense fight scene between him and Keith David, I believe was the actor. So, I mean, that whole thing was choreographed by him. And he also, the line about I'm here to kick ass and chew gum and I'm all out of gum, I mean, that was his line, not Carpenter's. So that kind of stuff I find to be a little bit more interesting.
You ever watch Dark Side of the Ring?
Yes. Yeah, I watched that, and I watched the A&E biographies that they've done the last couple of years. So, you know, like Booker T, I didn't know from Adam because I was not watching wrestling during his time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew of Shawn Michaels and I knew of Bret Hart, because it's kind of hard not to know of Bret Hart, because I mean, he's a legacy wrestler. So I knew about him. I knew about his feud. I knew about that screw job in Montreal and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I thought was interesting was more their kind of stories. So yeah, the stuff from Dark Side of the Ring and those were really cool. And I have a new respect for guys like Booker T because I saw those biographies. And obviously, I'm sure those are selectively edited, but I mean, all that kind of stuff is. But some of those guys really shown like some of their rougher edges, at least those that are still alive when their biographies were filmed. You know.
Did you watch? I think it was the A&E one about Bruiser Brody and like his murder down in Puerto Rico.
No, that was Dark Side of the Ring. That
was Dark Side of the Ring. Okay,
yeah, that was their very first episode of the first season, if I remember correctly.
Dude, that was a crazy story. He was a guy too that he would go to Japan and literally beat the shit out of those guys. Cause I mean, they're hitting him in a way where like, they can work the next night, but he's like, I mean, you go and do those chops, right? Like the chest chops, like he's going full force, like caving guys' chests and stuff like that, like really laying it into them. Like they're really hitting each other.
Oh yeah.
It's just not doing any permanent damage like you would in like a MMA fight or something.
Right. Well, and Bruiser Brody was one of those wrestlers that I knew by a different name because Dick the Bruiser was already the established wrestler in this territory where I come from in Indiana. So Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. I mean, he was the guy in that area. So, when Brody would wrestle here, he would have to go by a different name because there couldn't be two bruisers in the same wrestling in the same territory back in the territory days.
You know who messes that up so bad right now?
Who?
Is AEW. AEW wrestling. They have like, a bunch of guys named Paige. They have a bunch of guys using the same name. It's like and there's a reason why the old territories would do that. It was to avoid confusion.
Yeah.
And but yeah, AEW, like they sort of let their talent do whatever their talent's going to do, and like you need to have some controls there. So you're in Indiana. Was that AWA territory?
I believe so.
With what was the guy's name that was up there? Greg Gagne and Vern Gagne. Yeah,
Vern Gagne and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado, and we would watch, AWA wrestling back in the 80s before my parents had cable. So we didn't have WWF. We had AWA. Yeah.
Yeah, they were at least connected, if not directly. But I mean, that's how the territories kind of work. The ones, if you weren't direct rival with the territory right next door, you were trading out your guys to pump your box office. At the Tyndall Armory, which is where a lot of our professional wrestling was. Interesting enough, one of the young executives from that in this area in Indianapolis is the guy that started Glow, the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
Yeah. Did you watch the Netflix series?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. I watched the first first season was actually not bad. And then I think the second season was pretty terrible, but I used to watch the original Glow. It was actually pretty funny with Lady Godiva and stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, it's hitting right as I'm in like puberty. So of course, I'm definitely watching it because who doesn't want to watch scantily clad women rolling around with each other? I mean,
hell yeah.
Right?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So,
honey, you're going to hit this computer over here. You gotta stop. She's like walking into. I have a desktop computer down here. This is like my media server, and she's got her damn cone, and she's trying to push like into my desk. So that's why like I'm keep pulling her back here because she's trying to fly into outer space with this cone on.
It wants to be part of the broadcast.
I know. I'm like, well, come over on this side. You're not going to damage anything over here. And she's like, no.
No, let's make some noise over here.
I like it over here, Dad. Yeah.
Damn dogs.
So how long were you in the Navy?
I did my 4 years. So I got out. I got out of high school. I graduated in '97. Took a year off. I worked at a car dealership for about a year, and then I left for the Navy in 1998. And I got out in 2002. So I was still in the Navy when, during 9/11.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Yeah. So I was on my ship in Port Hueneme when 9/11 happened, and that was an interesting situation because if you guys ever seen the movie, what movie is it? Right, I can't think of it. The Antoine Fisher Story.
No. I'm familiar with it, but I've not watched the whole thing.
It's got Denzel Washington in it, and Denzel, he was the director. He sent a bunch of actors to our ship to learn how sailors acted, right?
Right.
So I remember we went to the base bar in Port Hueneme, and this this, we were hanging out with the actors, and this guy Stallman and I were like, what if we just act like complete retards and see if these guys like pick up on what we're doing, and they just act like complete animals in the movie. So this was on September 10th, right? This is like, late at night, September 10th. We're out there, we're just being complete retards, seeing if they'll act like this in the movie. And then we go back and they spend the night on our ship, and we were supposed to get underway to go do some kind of, exercise off the coast of like Los Angeles and stuff. And yeah, man, like the next morning I'm like hung over just because we just got absolutely trashed at the base bar being retards, and sobered up real quick though, like when the news hit and everyone's gathered around the TV, and it was like, what the hell? So we kicked all these Hollywood guys off the ship. Port Hueneme is what's called a CB base, a construction battalion base. So those guys parked all these, like, they call them Connex boxes, but shipping containers in front of our pier. Yeah. And then they parked tractors in front of the gates in case, like there was some kind of like all out assault and, terrorists were going to try to run the gates. Like they're not running through like 5 tractors. They're not. So, and they're also not going to go through like 5 Connex boxes to get to our ship. So they really like put us in lockdown. We kicked the actors off the ship, and then it was just like being in the Persian Gulf. Like all of a sudden we're doing like roving watch with rifles and stuff. And you only do that sort of thing in a war zone. And it was nuts, man. Like that was a crazy time. And then
nobody knew what was going on when it first happened. I mean, it was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
What kind of ship were you on?
I was on a cruiser, a guided missile cruiser. Okay. And I happened to be on duty that next morning. And I was the most senior guy in my, not division, but, in our department, in our department. And so I was the duty department head for my team, for the whatever it was, hold on, let me have another drink.
There you go. Jog your memory.
So, anyway, so I had to go and, meet with all the other officers, right, that were duty department heads. And we're sitting there, and we're like, nobody knows what the fuck's going on, And this FBI agent comes on the ship, and he's like, who's in charge or whatever. And, some officers like, I am. And so he hands this guy this piece of paper, and we're all just looking at this FBI agent like, what's going on? Even the officer that was in charge was like, so are you going to brief us? And the FBI agent is like, dude, I don't know what the fuck's going on either. So all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, I guess, we just need to be ready to go at a moment's notice. So, start the underway checkoff lists, and, and so it was like, I had people muster with me. I felt really like powerful, cause I was like a second class petty officer, but I had everybody muster with me, and I was like, oh, we got to get the underway checkoff list done. And, and then we hung out there for like another couple of days, and then they sent us off the coast of LA to listen to LAX airport traffic, listening for anything unusual, but like we've never listened to our own airport traffic before. So what's unusual?
So exactly what exactly is the standard here?
Right. It was a very interesting situation.
Jesus.
But and then I got out in 2002 and went off to college, and the rest is history.
The usual stuff, yeah. And now you're here.
Yeah, now here I am.
There you go. What was I'll ask? Maybe you've talked about this before. What was the drive, the impetus behind your podcast? I mean, how did you get like here? There's a whole gestalt behind what you do.
Yeah.
But what was there a in your own personal life, was there a final straw that broke the camel's back? Was it a gradual sort of thing, or how did that work out?
Yeah, so it's funny because most people get sort of red pilled after a bad marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. My marriage ended. I was married for 14 years, and when she filed for divorce, I was sort of like, was like a weight lifted off my chest because I hated her, you know, like for like the last half of our marriage, I just was not happy. But I was always raised where, you know, you get married and it's forever. So I was just like, well, this is just how it is. You're miserable.
Yep.
And
just take it.
That's it,
Yep.
you know? And so I found myself back on the dating circuit, and I was probably like, you know, 50 pounds overweight, had a terrible time meeting women. And then, so I just floundered around for about 11 months until some chick really just had a lot of interest in me and immediately just jumped into this relationship. Right. Like, I was that guy too that was just like, I love you, and like, what are we, and you know, like that kind of crap, right? Just everything wrong. But she just had high interest, so you know, like when chicks have high interest in you, like all the rules go out the window, at first at least.
They'll forgive some things at first. Yeah.
So I was with her for about 4.5 years, and you know, in hindsight, about 2 years in, you could tell that she was sort of like, I don't know what I'm doing with this guy. But she also didn't want to just end it right away, because a lot of chicks, this chick was a total monkey brancher. And so she was just sort of like, you know, biding her time until she could line up, you know, another guy.
Look for a soft place to land. Yep.
Yeah. And so, you know, so at the 4.5 year mark, that's when she starts telling me like, oh, you know what? I don't like you coming down to my house every other week. And, you know, like we need, you know, if you have a date plan, maybe call me or whatever. And just really trying to, you know, distance herself and basically just leading me on the path to break up with her. So I broke up with her, found myself on the dating circuit again, but this time I was actually in shape, because in 2016, I decided that I was tired of being a fat fuck. And so I started working out. I started running all the time. And she actually got me into running. And so I was actually, this time on the dating circuit, was easy getting dates, but I was still that needy guy trying to push for a relationship and all that kind of stuff. And so I would meet chicks, I would hook up with them, and then I wouldn't see them again after like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 dates. And or maybe even like a third or fourth date would have been like a miracle. And I was just like, what the hell am I doing wrong here? You know,
you're like, I'm the common denominator here. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. I you know, a lot of these guys end up in the, you know, the red pill space, just hating women, right? Like they just, for whatever reason, they get that red pill rage. They stay in it. I was never in like any kind of rage necessarily, but I just was like, what? Like the 2 major relationships in my life failed. And now I can't keep chicks around past a second or third date. You know, I'm clearly doing something wrong here. And so, so I started reading books, right? I think the first book I read was No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Okay.
I read Corey Wayne's book, How to Be a 3% Man.
Corey Wayne. I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, he's not red pill, but his book, to me, it's a life-changing book, because it's the only sort of dating and relationship book that runs the gamut between trying to make yourself more of an attractive type man, meeting women, spinning plates, and then getting into a relationship, and then how to maintain that relationship going long term. Gotcha. Right.
And what's it called?
It's called How to Be a 3% Man.
How to Be a 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that sounding familiar? Did you post something about 3% something recently?
I just did today. Yeah.
Was it in context of the book?
Yeah, it was basically the idea that Corey Wayne, the guy who wrote the book, didn't come up with the concept of 3% man. He stole that from a guy named Doc Love. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, gotcha, and I shouldn't say steal, right? Because all of us sort of
kind of borrow. You kind of push it along. Yeah. As long as you give attribution, that doesn't bother me too much. Yeah.
Well, so I've been studying this stuff for a long time, and Corey, I guess in his like first edition, didn't give Doc Love any credit, and I guess Doc Love's old radio series, he would complain about Corey Wayne stealing his stuff all the time. So in the revised edition, which you know, if you go and buy it now, it's like the revised edition. He does attribute certain things to Doc Love. So he fixed it. But But yeah, so I read that book. I read Atomic Attraction by Christopher Canwell, and then Dating Essentials for Men by Dr. Robert Glover. So I call those three like my holy trinity of dating books. And I would just play those on repeat on Audible. And as I was listening to them, though, I was actually going out and practicing, and I ended up finding a group of guys on Facebook called the 3% Man Facebook group. And I joined that group because it was all these other guys that were studying Corey Wayne's book too. And we were all in there posting date updates. I guess like Red Pill guys call it field reports. And so we called them date updates. And I was just really active in there. And then they made me an admin. And I just got this idea to ask the guy who founded the group. I was like, hey man, is it cool if I started a podcast just based on the guys in the group and like how we're all learning this stuff? And so it started off as just a podcast for fellow students of Corey Wayne's book. So the original title of the podcast was "Come On Man, a 3% Man podcast."
Okay.
Yeah, and it was geared around fellow students of that book. And so I just interview other guys in the group. That's how it really started out. And then I started moving away from that because in 2021, I sort of set a goal to interview like all three of those guys, right? Christopher Canwell, Corey Wayne, and Dr. Robert Glover. And so I reached out to Chris Canwell, and Chris Canwell got back to me and said, I'm not interested in doing interviews, which is cool, And then Dr. Glover actually had him on the podcast, which was awesome. Probably still one of my number one most downloaded episodes. And then reaching out to Corey Wayne, like I just didn't hear anything. I just kept reaching out to him and didn't hear anything. I put out a tweet one time that had like 900 retweets and it had him tagged in it, and he never heard anything. I emailed him several times. And so I'm just sitting there thinking like, is he just not seeing this? What's going on? And well, the guys in the 3% Man group decided to take it upon themselves one day to go and spam the shit out of one of his videos. And so there's like 50 dudes from the group going in there saying, hey, when are you going to go on Paul's podcast? And so they told me about it. And I was like, oh, well, thanks guys. So I went and was watching the comments of that particular video. And next thing I know, maybe like an hour or two later, he just went through and deleted all of those comments.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Like you pests.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. No, he sees it. He just is basically saying like, I'm not interested or fuck you,
Yeah.
Right.
Just blowing you off.
So by that time I had met Paul Benjamin. I had Paul Benjamin on to talk about,
he is.
That episode was like the difference between red pill aware and being red pill toxic and stuff. And that was when I was first sort of just dabbling in red pill. I sort of had in the back of my mind that red pill was this bad thing. you know? Oh yeah. I used to think that red pill was about hating women, which I think a lot of guys do, but but after talking to him, he like just backstage chatting with him in that one, he was telling me how Rollo does this stuff because what keeps Rollo going and motivated is that, guys are killing themselves over this stuff. And so it's that's a huge motivation for him. And I never even thought of that before, that guys were, self-deleting. So then I got this idea in my head. It was just sort of like epiphany, like in the shower one day, like I should reach out to Rollo and see if he would come on the podcast. And I tweeted Rollo. And the funny thing about Rollo is like, you guys probably know, you DM Rollo, you might not hear from him for like 2 days, right?
Pretty much.
That night, it was almost like serendipity though. Like I tweeted Rollo, in 5 minutes, he replies back saying, I'm following you, DM me. And I was like, what? Like,
that's
okay.
Cool.
Yeah. So I asked him to come on my podcast. He came on. That's actually, I think that's the number 2 most downloaded episode of all time. It was number 1 for a while, but this other chick that I had on, past Rollo up. Sorry, Rollo. But
well, she's got tits.
Yeah, and boobs usually
boobs,
most. Yeah,
boobs, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
I had Rollo on, and it was after having Rollo on, then I had Clary on. And then because I had all those guys on, I was able to get Rich Cooper on. And then I was like, maybe I should sort of go down the Rule Zero roster here and start talking to some of these guys. I talked to Ryan, I think next after that. And it was after my talk with Ryan that I really started looking into like old Red Pill stuff, like Married Red Pill, like old Reddit posts, stuff that he talks about, like Hawaiian Libertarian and stuff. And then I realized that like Red Pill isn't about hating women, it's really more about, just the nuts and bolts of like, this is how women are, you can use it for good, you can use it for evil or whatever. And I really just decided like, to really just embrace it. It's like, stop being this purple pill guy that, thinks that you can use this red pill stuff to like, be all romantic and shit. It's like, that's just not how things work.
Right.
So I think that's my Batman origin story.
That's your Batman origin. Okay, cool. And now you're here. So it's your podcast in general is fairly new. It's what, a year or two?
I started in 2020. Like
2020. Okay. Well, with the original group. Okay, I see.
Yeah, with the original group, and then I rebranded it without the Corey Wayne shit at the beginning of 2021.
Okay.
Basically after Corey Wayne sort of subtly just told me to pound sand. So I was like, you know what, I should. If he's not going to come on the podcast, like, why should I be promoting his stuff for him so hard? So I got rid of like all the branding. I used to have like this picture of me holding his book and stuff, and I got rid of that and just made it. But I kept "Come On Man," right? "Come On Man." A lot of people think comes from Joe Biden, which Joe Biden didn't fucking invent that. But
right, you just said it.
But like, Corey Wayne says that all the time in his videos. Like when guys do something stupid, he's like, "Come on, man." And so that's why the podcast is originally named that.
Gotcha.
And but I was like, you know what? That like Corey doesn't own that. Fuck that guy. I'm going to keep that. And just, I got rid of all the references to 3% Man.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I do still recommend that book. Like if people ask me for book recommendations on how to, get better with women, that's one of the first books I always recommend. So despite him as a person, his book's still good. So no grudges there.
Cool. All right, now I'm going to take a turn here. Paul, I'm going to put up in the private chat the answer to your question to me on Twitter. We can briefly discuss that if you wish.
We can't actually. It's funny. So Nurse Chick, she secretly follows me on Twitter. Well, I mean, like I know she does, but she doesn't comment on anything or whatever. She doesn't, she's trying to protect her anonymity. But she saw Trad Taboo's tweet about how I need to collar her, and then she saw my tweet to you saying, yeah, where can I get her a collar and stuff like that. So she sends me a message saying, like, she just put a like an emoji of like a guy thinking or whatever, and then she wrote, you know what, never mind, yes sir. So yeah, exactly. I need to get her a custom collar that just says Paul, like the
like the one that I'll be talking about this tomorrow on Red Pilled Hawk's channel in depth, but I have to give a shout out to Modern Life John for unearthing this, because you wouldn't know it. No, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of stuff I don't show. Obviously, I just give people some teasers. One, to show off, absolutely, completely showing off, and two, basically say, if I can do this, you can do this. So I was sitting in with my girl at the time, one of my girls, in a Mexican restaurant in Westmont, New Jersey. We'd ridden there on my motorcycle, and she had gone to the bathroom. So I'm pull out my phone. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I see Modern Life John talking about, if you want to find a feminine, submissive woman, you kind of have to turn towards the BDSM community as a good place to start. I'm like, Should I? Absolutely. So she comes back. I'm like, hold your neck up, take a photo, and I reply and I say, yes, can confirm. And that just fucking blew up. That was just that was just like an amazing thing to everybody. So I've been doing that, various forms, collars, play collars, day collars, all kinds of shit for well over a decade now. And I've said it on my old Masculine Geek Twitter account. I've said it on the new one. Don't get your woman jewelry. You collar her. There's nothing more powerful and this raw, visceral, primal. When your woman is on her knees in front of you, don't hang on, wait for it. Not what you're thinking, but that too. When she's on her knees in front of you, and you place that collar around her neck. Now, one of the main things about a collar is, what are you doing to a certain part of a woman's body? You're placing your mark, as it were. Your symbol of ownership around her neck, a very vulnerable part. That's powerful and that's poignant. But there's, I'm sorry, it's me walking into a restaurant, just going out and adventuring and just looking at that and seeing my name around her neck and the reactions to people, the ones that know.
Yeah.
And just have it. It opens up different kind of conversations, opens up different kind of possibilities with other women, all sorts of fun shit. So, but I'll get into more detail tomorrow at on Red's show at 7:00.
It's funny because I think M's the one, she commented on that because of a video I did recently about how we need to normalize women serving men again.
Correct.
Because my girlfriend, when it comes to like food and stuff like that and drinks or whatever, like when she's here, she doesn't let me lift a finger. She's like, she cooks everything, she cleans, she brings me snacks, she brings me drinks or whatever. And it's just like, I'm just here to, enjoy all that, but I service her in other ways. You know what I mean? And
absolutely. And that's really all that counts. And it's all that matters.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, when we're in public, like we're at my parents' house for the holidays, she's doing the same thing. She's bringing me snacks. She's, bringing me food and stuff like that. But she's also, asking like my dad and my brother, hey, can I get you anything and stuff like that? And they're just like shocked because most women don't do that nowadays. And my mom certainly doesn't do that. And my dad goes, how did you get her to do that? And I was just like, this is what she likes to do. And I just,
exactly.
One thing that I think guys mess up, they don't necessarily have to go so far as being BDSM if that's not what they're into. But most women want to serve their men, but we're conditioned not to let them. Like a woman's bringing you stuff and cooking you dinners. Like the nice guy in this is like, no, let me do that. And I realized, just let him do it.
Yeah, well, I had a friend of mine when I was explaining how I have women in my life. Like, well, I can cook and I can do that. Dude, you're fucking missing you're missing the point. Okay, and I can't talk to you anymore. Just shut up. Just go do your thing. My retort to that is, all right, motherfucker, how is your sex life? How is your relationship with women? Okay, if it's great, okay, fine. All right, that's cool. You're doing what you do and you're getting what you want. But if you're not getting what you want, your sex life sucks. Don't step to me with stupid bullshit. I don't want to hear it. And you don't have to have, I've said this before, BDSM is really 2 sets of 3 sections with the BDSM. It's bondage and discipline, domination and submission, sadism and masochism. It's 3 separate things.
Right.
You don't have to have any kind of kink or bondage and have a DS relationship. In fact, most relationships, and Raul has even talked about this, most relationships have an element of DS to them.
Yeah.
There is somebody leading, and it had better be the man. Otherwise, it's not long for this world.
It's going to fall apart. Yeah.
No, I know a lot of guys are gonna go, oh, but some women like the power and there's domains and blah 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 blah. Well, I'll be talking about this tomorrow, and I'll actually read the actual quote from this dome, female dom, who essentially says, guys that have that as a preference, that want to be dominated, you're best served to do that professionally at a dungeon and get that satisfied, because no woman in her right mind is going to want to be married to your ass.
Nope.
She doesn't want that. And
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of commercialized BDSM bullshit out there that's like, oh no, the preferences and she no, shut up. No.
Yeah.
Law of the universe. Men guide and lead, women follow and serve. I don't care if you don't believe that. I don't care if you don't like that. Once again, how's your relationships and how's your fucking sex life? Okay? If both of those things, together and apart, suck balls, then my point is going to be well taken. So anyway, let's get back to you and your girl and the collar. No, you don't have to have any kind of collaring ceremony if you don't want to. It's really whatever importance you place upon it. So
yeah, I think I mostly just joke with her about it. I don't know if I necessarily need her walking around in a collar, but yeah, man, like what you were talking about though is as far as like, being dominant in the relationship, setting the tone and taking the lead. That's not something that I was taught growing up. My dad is very passive aggressive. He's the classic no more Mr. Nice guy. He often says that men, like husbands, are like the Indians and old westerns. They never win, and
Jesus Christ.
And when I started reading these books that I've been talking about, the big theme in all of them is how men need to set the tone, take the lead, be decisive. All that kind of stuff makes you just more of an attractive guy in general, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of my content is just for regular guys. I'm a regular guy. I'm not out there trying to be Rich Cooper with my, my McLarens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If that's what your goal is, cool, but that's not really, my demographic. I'm really out there trying to tell these guys that think that, oh, you have to have 6-pack abs, you have to be 6 feet tall, you have to whatever. It's like, no, you really don't.
No, you absolutely don't. I don't. I really don't.
It's like as long as you are decisive, you set the tone. Like chicks are just like, what the fuck is up with this guy? You're totally you all of a sudden become head and shoulders above your competition. If you just like the biggest thing I learned too, especially on dating apps, because I live in the middle of nowhere. There's no cold approaching out here. There's cows and shit, like
farm approach.
Right, stupid. So I did everything on dating apps, and one of the things I learned is you don't chat for days on end on dating apps. You banter back and forth like 10-15 messages. Then you say, hey, you sound like a cool chick, when are you free to get together? And when they say, oh, I'm free on whatever nights, you say, great, meet me at this place at this time on this day. And then when I started doing that, I just cut the shit and just said, hey, meet me out in public right away. I was getting dates like left and right. It was so easy. So there's all these
straight to the point.
There's all these guys that complain about, dating apps and stuff. And they start like citing all these statistics about why, it benefits women more. It's like, just put the calculator down, nerd. Just go out there and just try this, and I guarantee you'll start getting more dates. It's so simple, and you don't even have to be like an Adonis with like 3% body fat. It's stupid. Yeah.
No, it's true.
Well, Ryan, I think I said this on Rule Zero. It may have been after the show, but Ryan's one of the few people that even comes close to kind of what you're talking about as far as you don't have to be top G to be a top G in your own life, as far as the quote I made reference to specifically was, never has the bar of expectation been set lower for man than it is right now. Never in the entirety of human history. And I've said it before on this show, you don't have to outdo, the Tom Cruises of the world or the Brad Pitts of the world. You have to outdo that fat guy at Walmart. You have to outdo, the schmuck in the car next to you. You have to outdo, your one of your buddies. It's you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun someone else.
The fat, slow people.
Yeah, and that's all there is to it. And and Ryan says, that's sad. It is, but it's also true. And if you're aware of that, it's like, okay, all I need to do is make myself a little bit better. Whether that little bit better is how I peacock, how I approach. Instead of asking, 5 girls I think are cute, I ask every girl I think is cute. I risk, 98% rejection for that 2% success, as opposed to, taking almost no risk at all and not being successful at all.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, Ryan is, I fluff Ryan up every show I go on, like as a guest. I'm like, oh, you guys have to check out this Ryan Stone guy.
Well, that's because you're both former squids.
We are former squids, and that's one of the things I really like about Ryan. And what's funny thing about Ryan too is that, and I was telling Clary this. I went to go visit Clary.
That's your first mistake.
That was my first mistake. I went to go visit Clary at his bunker there in South Dakota, and we're out hiking, and I was talking to him about the other like Rule Zero guys and stuff, because this was before they even invited me on. And I was like, I said, I really like Ryan's content. I learned a lot from that guy, but I honestly cannot get a read on that guy. I don't know if he likes me, if he hates me, because he's
difficult to read. Yeah,
he hates everybody in the manosphere. So I go, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he likes me or not. I learned a lot from that guy. I'm gonna fluff him up. I don't give a shit. But yeah. I mean, that's 100% true. I live out in the western Colorado, right? There's no guys out here that look like fucking Andrew Tate, So why would I try to compete with an Andrew Tate type guy? You're absolutely right. You're competing with the guy at Walmart, and if you read Rollo's latest book, The Player's Handbook, he talks about how 75% of people are obese. So if as long as you're just less obese than the next guy, you'll probably do better. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's funny. A lot of these guys get really lost in these statistics, and it's like, dude, just go talk to women. Just put the books down. Just go talk to them a little bit. You'll find that the chicks on Fresh and Fit are not the typical chicks you find.
Yeah, they're not representative of the world at large.
Well, and the fact that most of them look like brat dolls,
Right.
Yeah, they do.
Maybe if you live in Miami, maybe, but if you live out in flyover country like I do, like
not for anything, not even out here.
Mm-hmm.
And I live 15 minutes from Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and I'm at an hour and 10 minutes or so from New York. No.
You mean they're not all like what was that show, Jersey Shore?
No, that was trash.
Yeah, I mean,
most people. It's funny, around that era, if you talk to anyone from out of state, they knew New Jersey from Sopranos and Jersey Shore. What's up, Red? I see you. Yeah. So it's quite an interesting phenomenon. Like, no, it's not really. Well, aren't you guys New Jersey? It's crowded and it's smelly. I'm like, maybe certain parts of North Jersey on the eastern side, up near New York. Yeah, sure. Down here in Central and South Jersey, and even up in North Jersey on the western side. You've got the mountains up there, or the large hills.
Mm-hmm.
But South Jersey has one of the largest biospheres in the world. The Pine Barrens comprises almost 1 million acres of pine lands.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, no, do some research. Fuck.
Not everyone's in the mob out there. Is that what you're saying?
No. I mean, New Jersey's corrupt as fuck, and our property taxes are high because of mismanaging municipal pension funds and such since the late 60s, early 70s. It just kind of rolled along. It's like, all right, well, now you owe all this fucking money and you got to keep raising property taxes. So,
classic.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stupid bullshit. But
You're in the-
you
I was gonna
No,
say
go ahead.
you're in the Jersey area.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
you're-
I live in South Jersey.
Oh, okay. My dad
Yep.
grew up in Hawthorne, and my grandparents they had ended up moving to Tom's River. So the only place I'd ever been in Jersey is Tom's River. And,
Tom's River,
and-
yeah, out on the coast there. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yep.
in Hawthorne. Yeah, that was
Okay.
when I was a little kid, though.
No, I'm not that far away. I'm about 50 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I remember when I was a kid. So my grandma had a very thick Jersey accent. So
Mhm.
she would she would call on Sundays because toll rates were cheaper back then on Sundays, and she would say,
Yeah, right.
"Hiya, Paul," and and then my grandpa was he was hilarious. I could count on like my one hand the amount of times I actually spent with him because he would never come out here because the elevation was too high and he had asthma or whatever. But he was like this big Teamster guy,
Mhm.
and I remember we went out there one summer and he's driving around and he's calling all the women drivers. He's like, "You dumb broad,"
Mhm.
That's
Well,
what I remember.
yeah, it's pretty much, yes, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's women are pretty bad drivers. I used to I had a family member who was in 3 car accidents. I was in one of them. All 3 of them were women. The drivers were women.
Mhm.
I used to be a driving instructor, and I can tell you firsthand, young girls, women, they suck.
Yeah.
They're bad drivers. So, yes.
That inferior spatial perception really does not do them well in driving.
No. Well, they're. I also have this other theory. This is complete. Oh, it's not off topic. So, blowjobs and women driving.
Mhm.
Here's my theory, and I think I mentioned this before. The more timid and hands at 10 and 2 and slow driving, timid driving women
Mhm.
really give bad blowjobs.
Mm.
They're boring in the dick sucking department.
Mhm.
I
They
can
really
see
are.
that. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
They're afraid to get in there. They're afraid to get
that's
in
my
there.
theory. Women
get
that
the
are
job
just like
done.
zigging and zagging, and they're not being obnoxious, but they drive a little more offensively
Mhm.
rather than the timid, mousy kind of chick.
Mhm.
Those bitches give great head. Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, if they drive like they're from New York, they're pretty
Yeah,
good.
it could be. I mean, I know a lot of guys are like, "Oh, don't let your woman drive because that's beta." Proper. Like, fuck. Yeah, come on. For the most part, I like control, so I like driving.
Yeah.
All right. But every once in a while, I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense for me to drive out to your dumbass. You're going to come and you're picking, here are the directions. This is what you're wearing. This is the
Mhm.
time that you're going to arrive, and you're driving. Okay. It doesn't happen often, but it will. Then you can ascertain, all right, well, yeah, you know what? She's a bit of an aggressive driver. No nonsense. A good cocksucker.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think if I've ever had. Yeah, I've had Nurse Chick drive for me once. So Vince, you actually reached out to me, I think back in like September, because you were wanting to do this earlier, but I was getting ready to have surgery.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I
Obviously,
had
you're fine.
yeah, I had my gallbladder removed, and so after that surgery, I think is the only time Nurse Chick has ever driven for me because I
Okay.
wasn't allowed to drive myself home from the hospital, so she drove. But
Yeah, and you're exactly those kind of things are perfectly okay.
Mhm.
And once in a while, it's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to have my ass chauffeured around by my girl in her collar and her corset. She is driving my king ass around. It's the way it is.
Yeah,
So
I gotta get her a collar just so for when she's driving, at least.
absolutely, this is your chauffeur. Get her like a little cap and like a corset jacket, and have her wear the collar. Absolutely.
Great idea. Great idea.
Absolutely. I'll go over other collars and actually show one of the other ones that I have off tomorrow. So that'll be fun. But anyway, so yeah, definitely get her the collar for the driving. So this is your driving chauffeurette, chauffeuress. Anyway, this is your chauffeur-S collar.
That reminds me of the movie Falling Down when the guy at the have you guys seen Falling Down?
Yeah, Michael Douglas. Yes,
Yeah,
great movie.
Where they're at the army surplus store and the guy's calling the police officer, the female police officer. He's like, what do I call you? A police officer S?
Policeette?
Yeah.
No, sorry, Lumberluck. I've actually used dog shock collars on girls, on women. So yeah, I also have. I should probably get it out of storage. I keep saying that. I need to put my mouth where my money is. My money where my mouth is. I have a actual purchased from a farm, a cattle prod. So I have used that.
It's hardcore, but she's got to be compliant. You know what I mean? Like she's got to do what she's told.
Abso-fucking-lutely. So that's when they start talking back and shit. You hit them with the cattle prod. Not really.
Was it Clary posted yesterday some like, MMA fighter chick that was just her face looked like it was just battered as fuck. And in the comments I said, what did she talk back or something? Or
like, what do you tell a woman with two black eyes? Nothing. You've already told her twice. Jesus, these broads. That's funny.
Yeah, Clary's like, whoa, that's messed up, bro.
Well, some of the shit that he comes out of his mouth and he posts. We're always going back and forth.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
I was like, it's funny when I first started, talking with him and talking with like all you guys in the space, just the amount of absolute shit everybody gives Clary. They just everybody fucks with Clary.
It's funny. I never really we'd call each other faggot and shit like in text messages, and we call each other on the phone. What's up, dickhead? But the meme stuff that didn't start until about, I want to say about 3 years ago. We were in our first year of Masculine Geek because we're up at the 4 now.
Wow.
He started making these fake headlines. And there was one. It was like it looked like a screenshot of a news web page, and there's a picture of TJ. TJ had gone hiking, and he's sitting on a rock with a tin cup drinking coffee, and Aaron says something effective. Police find village idiot alone on mountain drinking coffee. Everyone else baffled or something like that. So it kind of started with that. And just blew, and then we're like, well, we got to get you back. And then Bull Rush started jumping in. So it's a nonstop onslaught of.
Bull Rush is a fucking savage, man.
He is pretty savage with his memery.
Well, he's a jarhead, so that's
he's really good with crayons.
Yeah, very good. Crayons, when he doesn't eat them, he's excellent with them.
So he's making his memes with his crayons.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. No, Clary's a good guy. We started following each other actually on this Twitter account. This is like my original backup account back in 2012, 2013. And he reached out to me and a few other people. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be out your way. I'm doing a meetup in Spring Lake, Maryland, or Spring Lakes or some shit right outside of Washington. And so I'm doing a meetup at this Irish pub. Do you want to come hang out? I'm like, all right, well, that's a 3-hour ride. There's a Marriott around the corner. I'll just crash. But we hung out. This is one of the times he drove his motorcycle out, and there's like 10 dudes there. All met up, hung out, had drinks, talked. Clary told stories, asked everybody questions about everything. It was like a good host.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool.
Yeah, when I went to go hang out with him in South Dakota, he introduced me to everybody as his not a friend Paul, so that he could write everything off on his taxes.
Yes,
but he paid for everything. Like
yeah.
he took me everywhere. He took me to like all the cigar lounges in the area, all the whiskey bars, like everywhere. He showed me everything. It was awesome. He's a really gracious host. You know,
He really is. Yeah,
it's just it's really cold down in the bunker. You know, down in the bunker it's really cold, but you know.
Well, yeah. They make you sleep on the floor.
He made me pay rent.
You had to pay rent for the 4 days that you were there, as he prorated.
Right.
Oh shit. Yeah, he's been out here a few times. He's come out to the Battlefield Gathering, Village by the Sea. The one Village by the Sea, the first one he came out. That's when he was. He thought he had cancer. That's where the gay hand thing came from.
Mm-hmm.
When he walked upstairs, he had his hand on his hip. I'm like, dude, what's with the gay hand? He's like, what? I'm like, look at your fucking hand.
Yeah.
Like, all right. So he spent the majority of the time, he hung out with us a little bit, legitimately sleeping, resting up because he was stressed out, talking to his wife, and drinking rum. That's not a joke. Those memes are real. The 4-hour napper and fapper, that's real. Although we're making theories about the fapping. Who knows? We never checked. But yeah.
Yeah, I heard about the cancer thing. Maybe from like Rob or I don't know, but I heard about that. But yeah, good thing that turned out to be not a situation. So
it was not. It's a mountain and molehill. So it was really good for him to de-stress. So, but Aaron's, as you know, Aaron online is Aaron in real life. Just a little nicer.
One thing that I didn't realize about Aaron though was how fucking amazing in shape he is.
Yep.
Because when we went hiking, like, you know, I run, you know, I like to do, you know, I like that. I did a marathon and all that stuff. So I like to run. But when I go hiking, it's like leisure time for me. You know, I'm out there with my dog. I'm taking my time. You know, I like to stop and, you know, have food and picnic stuff.
Yeah.
You go hiking with Clary, like that's his exercise. Like he's goes out there and he's hoofing.
We're going to charge through and go straight up the mountain. Yeah. And when you think about it, you're right. He is in good shape from that because he does it like 3 or 4 times a week. He's constantly out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I don't get too is like he's short as fuck, right? Like he's like a 4'8" or something. And
4'8", yes.
But he's
4'9".
But his like gait, right, when he's walking is like so big and he's going so fast that I'm like, fuck, like I had to jog to keep up with this guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, he's insane. And so like, but when you watch him on his show, you know, he's like hacking a lung. He's got this like, you know, kennel cough or whatever. And you're like, he's this old guy that's like decrepit. No, that's not. No, Clary's in great shape.
he's he keeps himself well staminized.
And like you mentioned his wife, like he's a total pimp too, man. Like you go out with him, you know, I think he likes to keep, you know, her under wraps. So I won't talk about her too much, but I will talk about Aaron. Aaron, when you walk around with Aaron, you go to some of these places, Aaron like leads her, he grabs her by the hand, he leads her, he'll just say, "Hey babe, let's go on the dance floor." He'll take it out there. He's an amazing dancer, you know, because you know, he's all in the ballroom and stuff like that. He'll just take her out there and like he's doing swing dancing and stuff, and you're like, what the fuck?
That's all stuff. That's all stuff TJ's taken up recently, and now TJ's out there with Aaron, so that explains it.
Yeah,
TJ was learning how to
they're
ballroom
ball
dance
dancing
and
with each
swing
other.
dance, so he could go dancing with
Yeah.
Cappy.
Use that information as you will.
Yeah. But Clary definitely he's a guy that sets the tone and takes the lead with his girl, and she just, she responds very well to it. And
Oh yeah.
he's a total pimp. You wouldn't even know based on his YouTube channel.
Well, and not only that, he's very private and he respects your privacy in that regard, and just keeps that quiet.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll send me these photos. I'm like, wow, good for you. I haven't met her yet. I've seen her in photos. She'll send photos all the time, and then I talked to her a couple times on the phone.
Didn't she bake some cookies for you or something?
She made me cookies and sent them out to me. Yes.
Yeah. So.
When your best friend's wife sends you cookies.
Yeah. Thank you for taking care of my little Cappy, keeping him out of trouble.
Pretty much. And then he sent me he sent all of us, Rob, TJ, and I, a couple years ago, something Spirit Airlines related. I got one of those little toy Spirit planes where you you hold it and you pull it down, then it goes real fast forward. One of those little things. I'm like, thanks, Aaron. He's like, yeah, I got. What's your address? I'm like, you already have my address, but here it is again. Fuck's sake. Do you have Rob's phone number? Oh, here we go again. Yes, I have Rob's phone number, and so do you for the 9th time. Oh, I must have lost it because it's not in my contacts. No, Aaron, you're too lazy to look for it.
I reached out to Clary and Rollo. Did I ask Ryan? No, I didn't ask Ryan. I asked Clary and Rollo. I asked them for an autographed copy of their latest books, right? Because they both came out with the menu and
Player's Handbook
roughly around the same time. So I said, hey, can I buy can I buy a autographed copy of your latest book? And Clary's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll send it to you. What's your address or whatever? So I sent it to him, so I sent him my address. He doesn't send me an autographed copy of the menu. He sends me an autographed copy of Bachelor Patty comics. And I was like, I mean, thanks. I've already read this, but whatever. And then he put some kind of asshole comments in it, as he should. Same thing with Rollo. I asked Rollo if I could buy, an autographed copy, and Rollo's like, yeah, I'll send it to you. And he never did, but he's a he's a busy guy though, so I let that slide a little bit, but
all right.
Yeah, we're used to letting Rollo slide on things like showing up for D&D games.
Yeah, what's that like? I mean, yeah, because he comes
on when we get Rollo'd. Yeah.
Where it's he's supposed to do something important and doesn't show up because he's been on 25 podcasts in a week.
Well, he's the dungeon master for one of our games.
Oh,
can't play without him. So.
Yeah. So what happens when he's like, "Hey guys, sorry I can't make it. I was just on Mark Sartain's podcast and I've done."
Well, actually, it's never really because of that. It's usually a scheduling conflict or something comes up, or maybe you have to pick someone up from the airport or something like that. Or a couple times he was sick.
Yeah.
It's really no big deal. It's just funny.
Yeah.
But there's been some games that he's a PC in that he's just missed out, right? Because, like you said, he was out in Vegas and that kind of stuff. So
when he's not running the game, because obviously he knows he's going to be there because he's running the fucking game. But for Drew's game, because he's a dungeon master as well and runs those games. He's missed a lot of those because he is on a podcast on Wednesdays out in Vegas or he's out in Miami and whatnot. So it's no big deal. When you come in, we'll fill you in on what you missed and you just pick up the pieces from there.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, he's such a cool cat. I never, when I first reached out to him and I had him on the show, you guys probably you guys have known him for a long time. So you probably never had this experience, right? But to guys that are sort of outside of the manosphere, he's godlike to a lot of people, right? And I don't think I've ever put him on a godlike pedestal, but he is sort of in the manosphere a celebrity.
Yeah.
It's very well known. And so when I reached out to him and set up my podcast, I was like nervous to talk to him. And I was like, oh my God, like this could like make or break my podcast, you know?
Yeah.
So I have him on my, you know, to interview him for the very first time. And he had some kind of like major power outage at his place. And like everything shuts down about 30 minutes into the conversation. And I'm like, oh my God, like what? Like this is like the biggest guest I've ever had on. And this is what happens. And so he and I are like going back and forth on Twitter DM, and he's like, I don't think I can do this. And I'm just like, I was like, you know what? I appreciate what you did. I could probably make something out of these 30 minutes or whatever. And he says, what's your schedule look like tomorrow? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, we could do this. We could pick it up tomorrow. Like, is 1 o'clock good? And I was like, yeah. And so like, if you go back and listen to that interview, it like somewhere in between, there's like a technical difficulty, little sort of thing that I edited in there. And then like, it's the next day because he and then he gave me another whole hour and a half.
Oh, nice.
You know? And I was like, dude, he didn't have to do that for me. And so that was like, after that, I was like, you know, I don't care what anyone says, like Rollo's like the coolest fucking guy on the planet, you know? And so like people that, you know, give him shit, people that, you know, shit on him in the manosphere, people that, you know, like there's like douchebags that say he's like fraud and stuff. I'm like, I don't care what you guys say.
We've known him for almost, well, it's a little over, I guess, yeah, it's about 4 years. Obviously knew of him before that, but he's been always square dealing with us. So I ignore hearsay and gossip and all the online bullshit. I just don't pay attention to 13th grade crap.
Yeah.
And as for the people giving him shit, and these are a lot of them, I think, are former devotees of Rollo. You know, followed him, you know, followed the red pill. And my thing is this, and I've said it before and I'll say it again: do not bite the hand that fed you. You may come to a space and ingest and sponge up the information. And the idea is to take that information, see ya, go put it into action. But if you linger, I'll give you an example. If you go to, say you take a class on, I don't know, automotive repair 101, and you take the class, you're like, fuck, I got this. And you're like, I like the teacher, I like the people, and they come and go. I'm going to keep taking the class. And then you get pissed because they keep teaching the same thing. Well, it's fucking 101, asshole. Move on.
Well, yeah,
Rollo is going to do the same thing because he has to keep the information. Has to be relevant and contextual because there are always new blood coming through that need that information. You're not new blood anymore. Stop ingesting it. Get the fuck out. Go, but don't go. Oh, he keeps talking about the same thing. We has to talk about the same thing, asshole, because there's new people coming on board.
Right. And it's like, it's not like any of that information changes that much, you know. Sometimes there's new statistics or whatever you got to take into account, but for the most part, like the bare bones of it, men and women, the dynamic, like that hasn't changed in like a millennia. Like,
no. And once you learn it, you go do your thing, go live your life, and you know, God be with you.
Yeah. One thing. I think Rollo and I are on agreement on this. But Ryan says this a lot. It is very much like, take what you want from the red pill and then get the fuck out. Like, you know, learn this stuff and leave. But I've seen so many guys that learn this stuff, learn how to get better with women, and then they leave. And then they stop reading the books, they stop studying this stuff, and they just sort of fall back on old programming, old muscle memory.
Yeah.
And then they just mess up relationships, right? They go back into putting women on pedestals and whatever. And next thing you know, you see them like back in the groups that you're in like 6 months later, a year later. And you're like, what happened? They're like, oh, well, you know, I forgot, I stopped reading the book, or I stopped doing all this stuff. And so what I like to tell guys is, take the stuff and leave and go, find a girl or girls or whatever your goal is. But at least read the book maybe once a year after that. Like,
well, you can revisit. Yeah, you can revisit. Same books along that subject matter.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh.
Keep it
Absolutely.
fresh, but like maybe don't dwell on it. Don't make it like your whole life. Like, like we have podcasts, so it's sort of like what we do now. But the average guy out there that's coming in for information, take it, leave, and then just revisit it like once a year. You'll be good. Yeah,
exactly. No, you're right, McDibus. Men are turning 18 every day. You're paraphrase, but it's true. It's very true.
Yeah, that's another thing too, that there's a lot of guys in the space that follow Ryan, actually, because Ryan likes to shit on the manosphere, and you can tell all of Ryan's T-Rex army guys, because they all basically say, like, they all shit on the manosphere too, all at the same time. It's kind of funny to watch them, and it's like,
not without decent justification.
No, they definitely do, but it's like, but a lot of times too, they're shitting on new guys coming in. It's like, yeah, you got to realize that you were probably at that point at one point too. We have it in the 3% man group that I started in. That got wiped out. So today's live stream was about the new group that we started, because the original owner got his account banned on Facebook, and it took the group with him. So we had to start a new group. But in the book, How to Be a 3% Man, the concept of being a 3% man is that only 3% of the male population understands women. That means that 97% of guys out there have no clue about women. And I think that's probably relatively accurate. So one of the things that we say when new guys join the group is, hey, we were all 97% at one point, So we try not to shit on the noobs too much.
Right.
There's otherwise, like, they'll get discouraged, and they don't want to learn.
That's true. Everybody had to start from somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mictimus, you mean I'm not supposed to tell every woman I meet that she has hypergamy?
That's right.
Oh, it's fun. You know what's funny? I actually brought up hypergamy. I was on. Do you guys know who Sarah Dawn Moore is?
No. Who's that?
She's a new up and comer, like female creator. And she doesn't do like red pill stuff like pearly things, but she's sort of like talks about relationships.
What's a pearly thing?
Yeah.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but keep going.
Oh, okay. So you got me.
That's right.
So she's new in the space, right? And I don't know if you guys know. I don't know what his full name is. He goes by like Hammer or something like that. He's like a MGTOW guy.
Hammer?
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Hammer something. Anyway, I guess he
Hammer
just
time?
Something like that. I don't know. He's an old guy with a beard. He's a MGTOW creator. He just posted a video talking about like how this chick Sarah Dawn Moore, Pearly, and Real Femme Sapien, and then some other chick I never heard of, how the four of them like corner 75% of the traffic into space right now.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And it's funny because Sarah, like, she and I have been in contact for like, maybe like 6 months now.
Mm-hmm.
She just started like last year and basically was like an overnight sensation.
Jesus.
And then she got on Instagram, started on her Instagram account roughly around the same time I started building up my Instagram account. And we had basically the same amount of followers. They had like 3,000 followers at one point. And then I just watched her over a 3-week period. She ended up having 90,000 followers. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And so I reached out to her and I was like, look, from a marketing standpoint, what the fuck are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I don't know. I think it's maybe my wit and maybe, like I have the red background. She goes, let's be honest, I have tits,
Mm-hmm.
I go, there it is. Gotta get tits. And so, but anyway, I was on her show last night and we brought up hypergamy because she was saying that a lot of guys in the space overemphasize the whole alpha dynamic. And I go, well, That's because men want to fuck, and if you want to fuck, you have to have those alpha traits. Like there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it,
Yeah, that's true. I think we need to get a Kickstarter going for a pair of fake tits. Now, I'm not sure. Would the tits look better in myself, Robert, or TJ? What do you think?
Well, TJ's younger and prettier, so
That's
I
true.
say we give him the tits.
We put the tits on TJ and rack up our numbers.
Maybe we could reach out to that shop teacher in Canada or wherever.
There you go.
That has those.
That guy's doing it as a joke, All right,
Quadruple
I'm gonna answer
Ds.
this question. Playlist. Paul already answered that. So go back and watch the beginning to this show, the first half hour or so.
Yeah.
We're not going to chew over old content.
Playlist
thank you for being here.
Playlist has been commenting on my posts lately, asking me for tidbits, and I'm like, oh yeah, here, read these books and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
Just go back to the beginning of the show, and you'll find out.
Yeah, because one thing Playlist asked me was about coaching, and I said, and I'm probably the only guy in the space that offers coaching that will tell you this: you don't need a coach. You don't need a coach at all. Like if you're a self-starter, read these books and then go out and practice the stuff. Treat it all like a science experiment. You absolutely don't need a coach. I think the only thing that coaching offers you is that maybe you don't have to read as much,
Well,
Exactly.
some guys are just lazy. They want tell me what I need to say word for word to a girl to get her to sleep with me tonight. That's
Right.
what they want.
And that doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
No.
they're lazy, but also several things. One, we as guys, we're task oriented. Okay. Which is one of the reasons why we can't really retire. Otherwise, we're going to die. So, but that's another story. So we're task-oriented. We're very much binary thinking. And there are men out there that are legitimately on some kind of developmental disability. What I guess they call the Spurg level or the Asperger or on the spectrum. I'm not mocking them, but and I've said this before, the content, especially when I talk about BDSM and very deep subjects like that, if you are aware enough to know that you're on a level of that, you're going to have a hard time because there's a bit of an art to this. It's not binary. There is a beautiful art to seducing women, leading women, having relationships, whether that's 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 months, or 10 years. There's an art to it, but you're going to have a very difficult time. That's just the bottom line. And you can't coach that out of somebody. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. You definitely need a little more help. I mean, obviously you're going to have them read certain books, but they're going to need a little bit more help than that. They really are.
But the thing is, if they look halfway decent and have some money, they might be able to stumble onto a girl.
Well,
who's
yeah, I
only
mean,
interested in them because they're not bad looking, but more importantly, they've got money.
That's gonna.
Elon Musk, perfect example. That dude's probably on the spectrum.
What's that one dorky looking dude on Saturday Night Live that is like been with Kate Beckinsale and all these other women? The guy who's like all tatted up and looks like the kind of dude you would shove into a locker just
repeatedly.
Just for being kind of a schmuck. Because he's not funny.
I know exactly who you're talking about. Let me see if I can find him.
But
David something.
Yeah. But anyway, you were talking about women.
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
But I tell you, part of the problem with the women taking up 70% or more, besides just being female and having tits, that Real Femme Sapien, I do not follow her. I don't know her. I've heard Rollo talk about her. She is constantly on my Twitter feed. I don't follow her. I don't like any of the posts I'm not saying I dislike the post she says. What I'm saying is I don't check the little like box or retweet her. Yeah. She's constantly on my feed. Why is she constantly on my feed? Because I talk to Alex Costello and Rob Says. And because those two guys
those two fuckers talking
doing stuff with her.
Yeah, I've already I have nothing against her. I've already muted her.
Yeah.
I've got her muted.
Well,
I'm
you
getting
know-
to that point, but it's like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Because most of the stuff she says is like,
It's bait.
yes, it's
Yeah.
all bait. It's like, give
bait.
me that dopamine hit. And it's like, woman, I'm not having sex with you. I don't have time to waste with you. And I'm
That's
not,
my rule.
you know,
She's she's one of the few creators though in the space that isn't really out there talking, like preaching to men and trying to talk about men's issues to other men and like try to build up her following that way. Like her actual target audience is trad women. Like she's trying to get these trad women to be more trad, you know, or at least she's trying to get women to turn trad. That's sort of like her thing.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Mictobus, I have no idea why you constantly have Japanese toys and Transformers in your feed.
You
Not
have
at
to
all.
you have to mute Robert next.
Yeah. Do you know? No. How about we ask this G.I. Joe figure? Do you know why he has toys? And we have no idea. We'll look
Yeah.
into it for you, Mictobus.
You should totally check it. Look, yeah, get a committee together.
Yeah, we'll form a committee.
Like a subcommittee and find out why.
Why
these
you have
toys
weird
are on the
Japanese toys and robots and comic books and games and shit in your feed. We'll look into it.
Speaking of Transformers, man, when I was a kid, GoBots. When I was at kindergarten, GoBots was like awesome,
Mhm.
and Transformers was huge. I was a big He-Man guy. I had the Castle of Grayskull and stuff.
You had
like
Castle
that.
Grayskull? Oh shit, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. He-Man, the Dungeons and Dragons figurines.
Mask. Do you guys remember
Oh, I
Mask?
remember.
I do.
Mask. Yes, I love. Somebody did a bit of a metal rendition of that, and I posted it on Twitter recently. I have to send it to you. It's really good.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude,
I remember Mask.
I loved all those. I loved all those shows. When the first Transformers movie came out, I remember like telling my kids because they were pretty young. I was like, I've waited my whole life for this movie.
Mhm.
Right.
And the first two were actually not bad, but they started getting stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of those ones.
This upcoming Beast Wars one looks kind of interesting, so we'll see.
Oh, I haven't seen a trailer for that.
I remember seeing
Oh,
the trailer for that. It looks
yeah.
good.
So we'll see what happens with that. My connection with Transformers goes back to Japan with Diaclone and stuff like that, and Micromen, which is Micronauts over here.
Yeah.
I'm probably at least, I'm guessing, a decade older than you, because I was out of the service after 8 years in 93, and you said you enlisted in 95?
98.
98. So
yeah, I'm 43.
yeah. I'm like 12 years older than you are. So
Okay. Got it. Yeah, those are good times though. Back in the 80s, we had like good kids cartoons back then.
oh
we
yeah,
did.
yeah, good cartoons, good comics, good games, obviously. So
Yeah, we did. All right, gentlemen. We're coming up on the 1 hour and 40-minute mark. I don't want to keep you too long, Paul. But
Okay.
it's been fun hanging out with you.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, just talking random shit.
yeah.
Finding a little bit about what makes you tick.
Yeah.
And
When is your
about what
show
you do.
usually on?
The main like podcast is on Monday mornings.
Okay.
I drop it at was it 7 a.m. Eastern time. That's available on like all podcast platforms and YouTube. And then I just started here in January, started doing live streams on Wednesday and Friday mornings, and that's at 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
And that's only on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook right now because of StreamYard.
Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
and also I'm on Rule Zero now. So in fact, I'm
That's
hosting.
right.
I'm hosting this Saturday.
Oh, you're hosting? What's the topic?
We are going to be talking about. There's a news article that came out that said that UK teachers are starting a program to re-educate kids that have been brainwashed by Andrew Tate.
What?
Yeah, re-education.
Yeah, I read it.
Straight out of 1984. So, I thought that would be a good topic. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Re-education of young kids because they've been brainwashed. with
That's the
this
dumbest
masculinity
shit.
stuff. Yeah.
It's the dumbest shit. Oh my god! All right. And where else? As far as your Twitter, do you have like Instagram or anything like that? Do you want to plug that?
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'm at Come On Man Pod, and then on Instagram, I'm at Come On Man Podcast. So yeah,
Okay.
follow
It's
me on
either
both
so it's
places.
either pod or podcast.
Yeah. I was my original account. I originally sort of started getting notoriety on TikTok. And my original TikTok account was at Come On Man Podcast, and that got banned. I had 30,000 followers and got banned. That was in 2021. So I started at Come On Man Pod there, and then I started branching out to other social media. So I'm either at Come On Man Pod or at Come On Man Podcast. Just you can find me that way.
All right, cool. All right, everyone in the chat who's here now, thank you for joining us. It's cool interacting with a few of you. Good seeing some of the old guard, as it were, and some of you new people. Anyone who's listening or watching later, thank you again for joining us, as always, and for being a subscriber. Make sure you do all the fun things. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment. I'm not very good at marketing. In fact, I suck at it. I don't care. So I'm doing a little bit of it now. Go do the things. Go do the things. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekends. As I said, tomorrow I'll be on with Red Pill Hawk or Red Pilled Hawk.
Red Hawk, Red
Hawk. What the hell?
He goes by all three of those, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all those iterations of a Red Pilled Hawk or a Red Pill Hawk. There you go. Find him on Twitter. I'm going to be joining him tomorrow on his show at 7 p.m. Eastern for a talk about BDSM and such. So we touched on some stuff briefly, but it'll be more in depth tomorrow. So go ahead and check that out, and I'll share a link tomorrow as well. All right, gentlemen. Once again, enjoy your evenings, and until next time.